Never.
Insurance business, I've been in the insurance hold. I didn't like getting up at 6 in the morning, taking the train downtown Chicago. So I had to establish a little more grit in my life, and I didn't have it then. That ended quickly. Then I got a job with a large company and transferred to and moved to St. Louis, which was great. I learned a lot. It was a good experience. I met my wife in St. Louis 34 years ago. So I'll always be happy and think highly of St. Louis. Then I wanted to move home because my mom was a widow and I kind of felt guilty. Ended up getting in the insurance business. I've been in the insurance business for over 30 years. I was a producer. I didn't know what I was doing for the first 3 or 4 years, but I kind of always knew that if I just hung out with authentic, good, high energy people, they were eventually going to be successful. And then I would eventually be successful if I kind of played the long game. And it worked out. So I did that for 25, probably over 25 years. Met a young guy who's the CEO of an insurance firm 5 years ago, roughly, and thought my old firm, we'd grown to be a large, firm, 2,000 people, private equity roll-up. Thought we'd purchase him and just became friends. A year later, went to dinner with him and my partner and myself, and he made us an offer we couldn't refuse. And it's been the most enjoyable 3.5 years of my career in the insurance industry, just kind of coaching all the youngsters, trying to leave a legacy.
What exactly has been your best and worst financial decision?
Best one might have been pre-pandemic. I was just on an airplane reading about Nautilus, which when I was a kid, it was like the first gym, Nautilus machines. So I was just reading about it pre-pandemic by like a month. I go, they own like a piece of Schwinn and some of these other companies. So I poured some money into Nautilus. Pure luck. Then the pandemic happened. I poured more money into it, figuring, well, people are going to be stuck at home, it seems like. They're going to buy this stuff. That was the best. The worst would be either Coinbase. So I gave a lot of those winnings back, although I'm still holding on. I would also say our home that we raised the kids in, we were there for 20 plus years. Yeah. I think I'm the only person that was in a house for 20 years that broke even. I wouldn't trade anything in the world though. Incredible memories. It was a beautiful house, good neighborhood, so nothing but good memories. And just, I guess, the timing when we moved wasn't perfect. So I would say that and Coinbase, but Coinbase, I'm still fingers crossed that that'll be okay.
I want to circle back to a question that we asked you a very long time ago, and your answer might have changed a little bit, but what industry do you really think people need to be looking to get into when they're starting their career in today's day and age in 2023?
And I am not an expert in this industry, but I would say data scientists, that would be an industry that I would look at. I know for our insurance firm, that's an area we want to grow greatly. Have some young studs like crunch all the data and, come to the old guys like me and say, hey, this is trending, that's trending. So kind of like, Moneyball, which I know is one of your favorites.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's kind of along those lines.
Yeah, maybe you say analytics is massive now for companies.
Analytics and any version of analytics, I think.
And before we change spots, I just wanted to maybe talk about insurance just a little bit since you're in there. What advice would you have to somebody wanting to go into the insurance industry?
I would say advice to, if you're going into the insurance industry, or I would say any sales position, you'd want to be at a place where you're on a team, because it's lonely to be in sales. A lot of sales companies, or you're on an island. So to me, it's like, try and make it like sports. If you can't be a professional athlete and you're in sales, try and be on a team that gets along and is really a team. So when you win, it's fucking fun to celebrate. Yeah. And when you lose, you blame each other and blame the prospective client. So I think team selling is huge.
I'm going to kind of follow up with you since we're kind of on the topic of sales now, but what is your secret to sales when you're on a call and you're trying to close a deal?
So one secret is they don't let me on the calls anymore. I run sales for our company, so we have like 25 sales folks in 5 or 6 different teams. Wow. With specialized verticals. So I am rarely on the calls anymore. I'm just pretty much coaching on strategy. Right. So some of our sales folks, they're technically brilliant, they're likable, they're personable, they care about the client, and they have very, very creative solutions that most of the folks in our industry just don't have because they're not as intelligent as our teams.
What do you implement throughout your company to really stand out against competition that kind of sells you guys over other companies?
Everyone at our firm, if you're in sales, you're on a team, and then you have a specialty. Our specialties are private equity. So we have like 10 people that could go to a private equity conference and they could talk about private equity almost as much as the private equity folks. So that's important. We have a hospitality team, so they go to hotel resort conferences and they know that business. We have a construction team. We have a team that focuses on restaurants. Team insures like 800 restaurants throughout the country. Like if you own restaurants and I could talk to you about restaurants and, hey, these 5 clients of mine, they're really dealing with these retention headaches at their restaurant, or they're starting to use this company to do the paving, whatever. So it's a secret sauce also to really know how to talk the talk versus just being that generalist.
What has been the book that has been the most impactful in your life that has led to the biggest change or influence for you?
I would say, and I read a boatload of books, and now I listen to books on occasion as well. So I probably read or listen to 3 to 5 books a month. I'm embarrassed to say the one that was most impactful was Don't Sweat the Small Stuff. It's all small stuff. You know, I could say, oh, it's Exodus, or it's The Big Fella, or Boys in the Boat, which is a great book about teamwork. But don't sweat the small stuff. It's all small stuff. It's just a reminder, like, stuff happens. And 95% of the stuff that happens isn't really a big deal. You know, on occasion, you lose a loved one or someone, there's an accident. But even then, like, what are you going to do? You have to be calm during chaos.
Right.
So, yeah, I sent that book to a lot of people.
Okay, so we've talked about career a lot. I do know that you're a family man, husband, and father. So for anybody that's becoming a father or anybody becoming a husband, what's your best piece of advice for any first-time fathers or first-time husbands?
First-time father, I'll take that. I think something my wife and I did a great job of, and we are huge believers in quantity of time with kids. We just that safety of the kids when they're real little, just kind of knowing that you as a parent, you're always around, you're always there. I think it's incredibly important. So that's the first thing that comes to mind is just quantity versus quality. And then first-time husband, it's hard. So the tip I would give is obviously all the basics, complete love and respect for your spouse. But I think it's really important if you're a hammer and you actually go to an office and work most days, before you get home, maybe pulling over, taking a deep
This jumping girl is crushing it in 2025.
Most days, before you get home, maybe pulling over, taking a deep breath, and remembering that, all right, good day, bad day at work. It's time to pay attention and be a partner to your spouse when you walk in those doors.
And any other tips on maybe when you get, later into a marriage, your kids get a lot older?
I think you have to be authentic, obviously, and I'm not an affectionate person, except for with 3 people in the entire world. I'm not a guy that hugs guys or girls, but I think it's really important to be affectionate with your kids and your spouse, and sadly a lot of people aren't. And then I think it's really important as well. If you're silly, be silly with your kids. If you're serious, try and add a little humor and find common interests. My son and I, we were all into reading. We'd go on reading trips sometimes. Sometimes we'd let my daughter and I would do more shopping trips.
Obviously, you have plenty of experience in your career, but is there one habit, it could be one habit or multiple habits that you keep every single day, whether it was when you were actively working heavily in your career when you were younger, or even to this day, that helps you become successful?
I'm working harder now than I ever have, but it doesn't feel like work because surrounded by a bunch of energetic, youthful hammers. So I start off every day with a triple espresso in my parlor, which is just a chair, but I call it my parlor, and I do a few minutes of meditation, and I literally, for 30 seconds to 5 minutes, just gratitude towards my family, towards I get to work today, I get to live in Austin, Texas. I'm out of that terrible weather in Chicago. Every morning I started off with the espresso and some form of meditation, which a lot of people do. It works. I've been doing it for years.
I feel like a lot of people mention meditation and gratitude stuff, but there's so many people out there that think like, oh, meditation, gratitude, whatever. Is it overlooked in a way? Like it really works.
To me, the espresso is the best part. Gratitude is, I think, pretty easy. Like just, everyone has stuff to be thankful for. So that's pretty easy. And then meditation, I do a 3-minute meditation or sometimes an 8. And 90% of the time, I'm thinking about business or my family. For 94% of the meditation, I don't know. But to me, it's a habit and I feel good when I'm done.
So my next question for you is, what do you think is the biggest mindset change that people need in order to become a multimillionaire?
I think they need to, actually come up with a plan, and then they need to have the tenacity and the wherewithal to execute on that plan. It's hard. So you come up with an idea, then you come up with a plan, which a lot of people don't really come up with a plan, and then you just got to stick with it. A lot of people give up, I think, a day, a week, a month before their business was going to frickin' go to the moon.
Right. But for you personally, a lot of people, they find a lack of motivation or a lack of desire for success. What is your driving factor for success for you?
So I think when I was younger, I was just trying to make a living. Then I wanted to be ultra successful and make more money and provide more for my family. I think now it's kind of the second mountain. This is kind of my final mountain, if you will. My partner and I joined Virtus, 3.5 years ago with a few other folks on our team, and Now it's about legacy. We've quadrupled in 3 years, and I can't even imagine where they're going to be and where we're going to be in 5 years and in 10, 15, 20 years. So it's legacy, having a small impact on a bunch of guys and girls your age who are on their way to making millions and millions of dollars. So hopefully they remember some little piece of advice I gave them to help them be more successful professionally and personally.
Basically, a lot of people might define success in different ways. How do you define success?
First and foremost, it's having a happy family life. That's the foundation to everything, and I am beyond lucky that I have it. So I'm the greatest wife in the world and 2 phenomenal kids and a great son-in-law. So that's first and foremost. And then right behind it is financial freedom. Being able to take a deep breath, not having to worry about paying the bills. Don't have to go to work if they turn into bad people. You can just leave and get another job or start your own. To me, that's success, sprinkled in with a handful of good friends.
If you had 3 guiding principles for the next generation, what would those 3 principles be?
Try and be a hammer. So work hard, be a really good teammate, and get a lot of time alone. Spend time alone, thinking, reflecting, appreciating life.
I just want to talk about 2 of those real quick, but I guess what is the significance of having that alone time with yourself? A lot of people, they're terrified of being lonely, they're terrified of being by themselves, but what would you say is the importance of that?
I think it's just so important to, on the business side, to decompress, get away from your phone, get away from your computer. Our firm, we're doing that this month. We're spending a lot of time trying to get away and reflect on the year and plan for next year. Lock yourself in a room somewhere where no one's going to disturb you. Go to, our CEO's going to, a farm for 8 hours and locking themselves up there just to get away and think and reflect. And I also believe alone time is when get hit with that random thought of how to make your business better.
If your bank account hit 0 tomorrow, what would be the first action that you would take to kind of build your empire back?
I would get back into full-time sales because I know I could still hustle and out-hustle people and outwork them and get some commission checks quickly.
And with those commission checks, we talked about what you look for when you invest in a company. Where do you think people should really look to kind of invest and put their money that you're seeing is really making a lot of people successful?
I think, diversifying, so putting money in the market, putting money in real estate, I think is really smart. I've also always put money in private companies, so private equity, or if you have friends or people that are starting companies and you can invest in those. And then maybe investing in your hobby, whether it's like collecting cars or baseball cards or something like that. I've seen a lot of people that end up turning their hobby into something that becomes financially successful.
So if you were to start a new company tomorrow, what resources would you grab and what company would you start?
What resources would I grab? So I'm old enough and I know enough people now where if I had that incredible idea, I'm confident I could raise the money. So that wouldn't be hard. The idea I think I would probably do, and I've kind of been keeping in my back pocket for retirement, I would start a company that taught people how to be better parents. I've just always been fascinated that I think there's parenting in general is subpar. And I think my wife and I have made it our mission, and I think we're pretty good at it.
We've asked you a lot of questions today, so thank you so much for your time and just your mentorship and impact for some of these questions. But I did want to ask, just to wrap up the video, how do you want to be remembered by?
I've thought about that before, and I think it's, besides being an honorable, hardworking, incredible husband and father, I would say authentic, just real. I tell it like it is. Sometimes that's good, sometimes it's not, but just a nice, authentic family man who also kicks some fucking ass in business.
I love that. Guys, that kind of wraps up episode 8 of 10 questions. Mike, thank you so much. I did want to get into your current company, Virtus, kind of what you guys are doing there. If there's anything that you want to tell the audience kind of about Virtus and what you guys got going on. Yeah,
so our industry is male, pale, and stale. Virtus Insurance, headquartered Kansas City. We have offices Fort Collins, Colorado, Chicago, St. Louis, Austin, Fort Worth, and Memphis, Tennessee. We're over 100 people, and if you're stuck in a sales position or a service position and it's with a bunch of people my age or older and it's slow and boring, we are the antithesis. We are shaking up the tired industry, incredibly young, energetic, specialized. It's a game changer. So if you're bored and you want to have unlimited income potential and joy in your job, track me down.